Namaste, my name is Nilesh Sinha and welcome to my channel Pilgrimage Varanasi. Today I am going to discuss with you a story of Lord Ganesha, the Chhappan Vinayaka of Kashi. The story goes like this. There was a time when Lord Shiva has to depart from the city Kashi. Long time ago, the world was tormented by a drought which lasted for 60 years. The very existence of the earth and its people was threatened, and all the social order was broke down. The creator Brahmaji was worried about what to do. He saw, by virtue of his divine vision, that there was one sage king left who was capable of re-establishing the order. His name was Ripunjaya, and he has retired from his kingdom to practice tapas or tapasya in the city of Kashi. Lord Brahma begged him to resume the kingdom of the earth and put the things back into the order. Ripunjaya accepted this responsibility with great reluctance upon one condition, that the god would retire from the earth and go back to their respective heavens. Brahma accepted his terms. Ripunjaya prepared to take the throne, and he took the iconic name Devdasa, the servant of the gods. Devdasa, regent of the course, meant that Shiva would have to leave the city. Brahma approached Shiva with the news. However, in the meanwhile, Shiva has granted a boon to Mount Mandara, as he requested his own mountain peaks be equal of Varanasi, and that Shiva dwell on this mountain and make it his home. Shiva agreed to leave his beloved city Kashi in order to please his devotee and to keep the Brahma's pledge to Devdasa. Before he left Kashi, however, Shiva established a linga there as a form and an emblem of himself. This linga, they say, is the very first linga to be established on earth. By abiding this linga, Shiva could depart and yet remain in sacred Kashi. When Brahma and Vishnu saw Shiva's linga, they together with all the other gods likewise established Shiva lingas there to honor Shiva. Then all the gods departed as was ordered, and Shiva left for Mount Mandara. The new king Devdasa made Kashi his capital. The earth and the people flourished under his leadership. During Devdasa's glorious rule, Kashi was a city of flawless harmony and was said to surprise the heaven in excellence. Meanwhile, Shiva suffered greatly on Mount Mandara, like a lover separated from his beloved. He burned with the pain of separation from his city. Parvati also longed for Kashi. Parvati and Shiva wanted to create a flaw in the dharma of the king so that he would fall from the power. A king like Devdasa cannot be departed by ordinary plague of diseases, old age and death. So Shiva decided a subtle plan to corrupt the king. He sent a group of female goddesses called Yogini to tempt the king, commanding both the power of yoga and the magic of Maya. They were delighted to go to the Kashi to practice their art upon the king. They considered it a great blessing to serve Lord Shiva. The Yoginis entered the city of Kashi and were thrilled with the darshana of the sacred place. In Kashi, the Yoginis 64 of them assumed a variety of forms by the power of their Maya. They became dancers, female ascetics, garland makers, hairdressers, fortune teller, tightrope walkers, palmists, and magicians. For an entire year, they worked in the city, but they were unable to create trouble and couldn't find any way to deceive the king. Having failed in their mission, the yoginis didn't want to return to Shiva's place where he was waiting for them. From that time on, the 64 yoginis stayed in Kashi and never left the city. Afterwards, Shiva sends the sun. The sun, like yoginis before him, trembled with excitement at the prospect of beholding Kashi at last. The sun also lived in Kashi for an entire year, but he was also not able to find any flaws in the king or in the city. Although he tried in many ways to sow doubt and confusion, he was unsuccessful. Like the yoginis, the sun also decided to take refuge in the city Kashi, and he took a vow of Kshetra Sannyas, a special vow never to leave the city limits. He reasoned to himself, Dharma is really living in Kashi. Thus the sun took off residence in Kashi, dividing himself into 12 parts called Adityas. After sun, Lord Shiva sent the Brahma to Kashi. Brahma took on the form of a Brahmin and went to the court of Devadasa with a scheme in his mind. He asked the king for aid for the performance of 10 horses sacrifice, that means Ashwamedh Yajna. As patron, the king would have to provide not only wealth but a long list of accoutrements, and sacrifice itself would be a complicated and exacting ritual event. Surely somewhere the king would make a mistake and his perfect dharma would become flawed. Devadasa agreed to the sacrifice and he flawlessly provided everything that was required. And when the Brahma performed the 10 Ashwamedh sacrifice, the place of the rite became known as Dashashwamedh. Since that day, it has been one of the most celebrated tirthas of the earth, where one receives the fruit of 10 Ashwamedh merely by bathing. At Dashashwamedh, Brahma established a linga, Brahmeshwara. Brahma, finding no fault with the king, and did not return to the Mount Mandara but stayed in Kashi at Dashashwamedh. Now Shiva sends the Ganas to recapture Kashi. When Brahma did not return, Shiva was very disturbed, for none of his emissaries had returned. He called in his faithful Ganas and he commissioned 2 of the best Ganas to go to Kashi, Shankukarma, which means spiked ears, and Mahakala, the great death. They both set out enthusiastically, but as soon as they arrived in Kashi, they forgot the Shiva's order. They were distracted by the magic of Kashi. Then they said to each other, Kashi is a place where an ordinary dip in the river is as holy as a post-sacrificial bathe, where placing a mere flower on Shiva's linga is as great as gift of God, where offering food to one Brahmin is as holy as a great sacrifice, where establishing a single linga is like creating the three worlds. Why should one ever leave Kashi, where liberation is in very palm of one's hand? Thinking thus, the two of Ganas established lingas in their own names and stayed here. When the two didn't return, Shiva sent two more Ganas, Mahodara, the big belly, and Ghantakarna, bell ears, but they too captivated by the city and did not return. Finally, Shiva began to smile to himself, knowing now that Kashi would captivate anyone he might send. Finally, Shiva called in his chief Gana, Ganesha, and sent him to Kashi. When Ganesha arrived in Kashi, he took the form of a Brahmin fortune teller. As such, he charmed the citizen of Kashi and one of the Devdasa's queen. Queen Leelavati told the king of this unusual man. The king invited this fortune teller to the palace and was at once impressed with his wisdom and good character. He called him back again the next day in order to seek his advice. He said, "I have ruled the world as no other king has. I have protected my subjects as if they were my own children. I have honored the feet of Brahmins and I have maintained the order. But now, even though the kingdom flourishes, I feel a certain indifference towards all this. What is the fruit of all this good work?" Ganesha said to the king, "Indeed, the power what you have assumed is very great. You have become sun and the moon, the 8 directions, all in one. You have assumed the powers of ocean, the fire and the wind. But what is the final result of all the energy you have devoted to the service of your people? I cannot answer this question, but I can tell you that exactly 18 days from today, a certain wise Brahman will arrive in Kashi. He will give you your answers." Ganesha had Lord Vishnu in his mind as the wise Brahman and also to complete the task. But Ganesha, like the others, did not wish to return to Lord Shiva, not even to report his success. He divided himself into many Ganesha, 56 in all, to avail the eventual arrival of Lord Shiva. Now I am giving a halt to my story here. I will conclude this story in the second part and also elaborate on 56 Ganesha or Chappan Vinayaka. I hope you have enjoyed what I have just narrated you. If you have not yet subscribed to my channel, please subscribe it and also press the like button. See you soon. Thank you very much.